Old-fashioned brides and grooms will want to hear about these wedding ideas. There's nothing better than to add a touch of vintage beauty to one of the most important days of your life, your wedding. There are various ways to give this event a sophisticated and romantic feel that will make you feel like you've just hopped into a time machine. It doesn't matter whether you want to have a 1930s Art Deco wedding theme or spice things up with the boldness that the 1960s had. What matters is to have a wonderful, old-fashioned wedding that you'll never forget. Vintage wedding ideas that will blow your mind. Everything begins with the dress. You cannot have a vintage-themed wedding without a lovely vintage dress. If you want to add anything archival to this event, you must start with the dress. Don't forget that this dress represents not only a piece of fashion history. Let's not forget the wedding venue. It's safe to say that picking the right venue for the wedding is one of the most essential steps both bride and groom must take. Namely, many old-fashioned people are huge fans of a rustic farmhouse-styled wedding because it conveys a sense of ease, comfort, and warmth. What's great about it is that you do not need to spend a bunch of cash and waste a lot of time to have a rustic wedding decor. Those who have attended weddings with a rustic theme will tell you that they generally have a more relaxing and natural atmosphere and vibe because the emphasis is on the outdoors. If you're a history buff, you may consider the historic home. These venues normally boast elegant chandeliers, period furniture, breathtaking staircases, ornate crown molding, and many other things. One of the biggest benefits of these places is that, due to huge lawn space, you can have indoor and outdoor weddings. If you're an old, romantic soul, then maybe castle-styled wedding might just be your thing. Adding more sensational suggestions below. The color scheme. If you want your wedding to be spectacular and out of the ordinary, you should select the colors that are always in fashion. Colors that are normally included in vintage-inspired weddings are peach, gold, black, ivory, plush, burgundy. But of course, these are just our suggestions. After all, it's your special day, so it's up to you to decide what color you'll be using and combining, but no matter what you pick, just be sure it's creative and authentic. What about flowers? It's safe to say that there's no wedding without flowers because precisely these wonderful plants are here to set the feel for this grand event and highlight your theme in a very subtle yet lovely way. Even though you won't necessarily run into vintage or old-fashioned florals, some flowers are still widely used at these types of weddings, like daisies, wildflowers, carnations, sunflowers, cornflowers, and dahlias. Vintage car. Imagine rolling up to your wedding in an elegant, vintage vehicle. How frequently do you see that? It's generally quite rare to come across these cars because they are expensive. However, if you have the means, you should opt for them. Silver Cloud and Rolls-Royce are the most popular vintage cars intended for weddings. Oh, but we didn't mention the bridesmaids. Don't worry. We didn't forget about them. We're not sure if you've noticed, but most modern weddings are about matching and complementing. Well, that's not the case with old-fashioned ones. When it comes to vintage weddings, bridesmaids normally wear different dresses that perfectly match the general theme of this ceremony but, at the same time, highlight their own unique personalities. As far as the hairstyle is concerned, since you'll be having an old-fashioned wedding, it would be recommendable to have something that's simple, subtle, yet elegant. It doesn't hurt for bridesmaids to have something in their hair, like flowers or sophisticated hairpins. Sustainable stationery. Employing recycled, vintage, biodegradable, and/or compostable paper is generally a great idea. However, just keep in mind that these invitations won't likely withstand the test of time for every single person who is going to attend the ceremony. Consequently, if you want something more durable and resilient, you should make the invitations out of seed paper. These can become heirlooms outside of being gathered, framed, and stored in an album. Birdcage wedding veil. Since we previously gave the necessary advice regarding the wedding gown, it's time to discuss the wedding veil. If you're planning on having one, you should certainly opt for an elegant and beautiful headpiece that will take your overall wedding look to the next level. Since we're talking about an old-fashioned event, then the best option for these purposes is a birdcage veil. That will surely bring a vintage effect to your bridal look. If you're not sure what we are talking about, then just try to remember how Kate Winslet looked in the legendary movie Titanic, where she wore precisely that breathtaking birdcage veil. We can all agree that she looked impeccable. Menu. Even though it would be nice, remember that you are not obligated to have a menu that will reflect the vintage theme you picked. Who knows, maybe your guests might not love the food from a particular era. So instead, you should concentrate on the presentation and be sure to utilize vintage cake stands, antique glassware, and retro mason jars. Please subscribe to our channel Best for Bride for future updates and visit our website www.bestforbride.com.